Okay. All right.
Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of the Space Cowboys Podcast. I'm glad I remembered that name. There was a 2 second gap there where I was like, what is it again? Uh, my name is Kyle. I'm joined with my friend Jim. How are you today, Jim?
I'm wonderful. I almost said I'm wonderful, Jim.
I'm wonderful, Jim. How are you, Jim? Um,
Wonderful, Jim.
yeah,
Double
this is
Jims.
this is the Jimcast. Yeah, you may know our voices, you may not. We have gone on multiple ventures in the past, podcasting and such. Just bullshitting around, talking about movies, talking about TV shows. We kind of run in the same circles on the internet and have known each other for, God, quite a few years now.
Been
Probably
a
like,
while.
yeah, coming up on like 9 or 10 years, I think, which is wild. Um,
Gosh, really? That's
yeah.
makes me feel it makes me feel old for one. But I think when the dreaded 2020 hit, my perception of time in terms of years,
Mm-hmm.
it has not necessarily recovered. Like that batch of time, I feel like it could be 2018, feels like it was 2022. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a little off.
Yeah, so we've been at this for a while. We like a lot of the same stuff. We've, like I said, we've actually our first stab at a podcast came out of the weirdest places. Was watching a crossover event on the CW when that was still a thing. When DC was still trying, but not trying at all.
Yeah.
Um, the what was it? The Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover.
Crisis on Infinite Earths. Yeah, the DC TV show. It's man, it really it's crazy to think back that far. With this thought that is really how it started, and it really just started because I still remember. If you haven't watched it, don't save yourself the
Please
time.
don't.
The quote unquote important parts can be found in single scenes
Yeah.
on YouTube. And then I really don't want to have to go down the rabbit hole of what it meant in terms of Smallville. But yeah, I remember every night was a different show. I think some of them were their back-to-back shows.
Yeah, because it was like the regular programming week for those shows anyway. So I think it was like the
Yeah.
Flash would run one night, and then the next night was Arrow,
Yeah.
and then like the week later would be Batwoman and Supergirl and whatever.
Right, yeah. And that was awful. And that took I'm pretty much sure. I don't know, no one knows this. I used to have hair before that. And then we watched it and it immediately just it was kind of like you remember this is a reference going back. I Know What You Did Last Summer, where Sarah Michelle Gellar's uh, character wakes up and her hair's chopped off. It was
Yeah,
similar to that, but then it was the head of DC Television
yeah.
standing there with a razor going, "Now watch Batwoman."
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I'm glad that has. I gotta reveal something though, because I remember that season. I know I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent, but this is kind of what it's
It's
going to be.
connected. Yeah.
The beginning, when anyone who follows comics, especially DC, knows that Crisis on Infinite Earths was a pretty big deal. And they had announced that was going to be their big crossover. So I made a point, and at the time I did not watch the shows, from season premiere all the way through, I was going to watch every episode of every show. I did. Flash, Arrow, Legends, Supergirl, Batwoman, and even Black Lightning.
Yeah.
With Mortal Kombat 2's James Remar. So I watched everything, and then that crossover was so bad, I didn't watch a single episode of any of those shows after. I still haven't. And they had their series finales. I don't know how they ended.
Yep.
People have been telling me watch Superman and Lois. I know it's probably a very good show. I haven't seen an episode because I
Yeah.
felt so wronged.
I finally got there with Superman and Lois, and I'm like, for some reason, it's taken me so long to get through. I'm still in season one, and I realize with this season that's on, it's going to be it. So now I finally have to start watching it, and it's decent, but I know what you mean because it's like every time I see, and he's a really really good Superman. He's great,
He is.
but I just think of like. This wasn't even the crossover we're talking about, but I think of him in that fuck ass black suit and like the crossover before this one, and I'm like, why did they
Yeah.
do this? You know, just yeah. but it's completely separate from all of that. Like, there's no crossover. I was told that maybe like Diggle shows up in season 2, which is
Okay,
interesting.
remember what they did with him? They were
That
like
pissed me off
everything.
too.
They
Yeah.
went out of their way to be like, no, he's not Green Lantern. He's not Green Lantern. And at the very end, hey, I think he is.
Hey,
And
check it out. He discovered
then,
this green thing. Yeah.
yeah,
Bullshit.
that was is. I mean, that's kind of my love life. I just discovered this green thing. But going back to what we started out, we did that, and we also did, and this is, I think we did more so just for ourselves as a way to hang out. We did a lot of feature length commentaries
Yeah.
that I don't think anyone listened to,
No.
including us. And they would have no reason to. If someone listened to our feature length commentary of like Jason Goes to Hell, then what are you doing with your life?
Yeah,
You
you
know,
gotta
maybe
find something better to do.
someone you gotta. I mean, but we're in the darkest timeline now. So maybe now is the time to go back and subject ourselves to that. I don't know, but we've done a lot. We've done those feature length commentaries. We did probably the most atrocious trivia show that I have ever been a part
And
of.
that's in a
I
world
think the
with
last.
Christian Harloff. That's really
Oh,
saying something.
dude. Oh, that's a conversation for another time because he randomly popped up in my YouTube algorithm. And then I thought, I haven't seen much of any of these guys anymore. So let me see what he's. I don't know, man. It looks like the production.
Yeah.
It's back to him doing this, which, maybe we'll get up to Christian Harloff levels.
One can only dream.
That's what I'm hoping for. That's the goal. That's the end game.
That's true. Here's the thing about, and I don't want, again, not to tangent on other things or whatever. And that was also a part of like the way that Jim and I actually initially met was through a YouTube channel called, if you're familiar with the name Christian Harloff or Mark Ellis, Schmoes Know, or like the movie trivia Schmodown was what they ended up doing. This YouTube channel that reviewed movies, and they had their own like movie talk show for a while. They were paired up with Collider, which is still a very active thing, like a movie reporting website. Yeah. And they did like movie trivia, and we were in a Facebook group that was like a fan group for their YouTube channel. As many fan groups go, it very quickly turned into just like a toxic cesspool of personalities.
It was it was really bad.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you take that because I'm revisiting it and I'm remembering it now, and just everything bad that I think people agree about social media now
Yes.
was then, and it kind of, it follows the same step by step. It takes something that's pretty fun. It's kind of like a George Carlin bit. You talk to one person and everything is so promising, you understand each other, all of this, but the second you get groups of people in there, it becomes the substance.
Very much so. Yeah. Yeah, and that was, like I said, it was probably about like 8 or so years ago, 9 years ago, when we were actually active in that group, when the channel was still active. Jim and I and a couple other friends who shall not be named and don't really matter anymore and aren't relevant to anything, kind of offshot from that group. I don't even know if that's a word. We had our own offshoot. We decided not to be a part of that group anymore because it was just not fun anymore. We stopped watching that content for the most part. I've kind of checked back in every now and then, and it's just not really for me because I think Christian Harloff is a good reflection of what the problems that we had in that group. A lot of the same personalities and people who are very
a little bit. I remember there was not to plug it too much, but to give people an idea of what that meant. There was a clip, and they have, a lot of these YouTube shows or things, they'll still have producers, and they'll still, especially when you get bought by a company and then you have all these people with salaries, you have producers who will give you a rundown, or they'll give you specific guests or topics, what they need to cover, because they want, to pick interesting things. Listen, I will spend all day talking about, movies like DC Cab and No Treat, No Surrender, starring a young Jean-Claude Van Damme. Not a lot of people are going to be tuning in for that. So I remember this one clip where he was just screaming at his producer, saying like, "I'm not going to cover it," and dropping F-bombs and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, I just kind of laughed at it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, That's it. That was a reflection of what this Facebook group was. And I think it was at a time, gosh, if it was really 8 to 10 years ago, that meant I was in my late 20s, early 30s. Um, and I don't think it really kicked in until, I mean, I was way too late on this to realize that, man, social media, especially Facebook groups, are just very vapid and time consuming. And people will, like people who shall not be named, will have no problem spending hours on end
Yeah.
just going back and forth just out of spite. And it was like, I think getting out of that and then realizing that, went a long way. And at least, man, I don't know about you. I think about that back then, and I wonder how I spent so much time on it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. That among that group, we had a group chat with a couple people that came from that group. Same thing. I would spend hours in that group chat and looking back, like, what were we doing?
Oh,
It's just a lot
yeah.
of negative energy that was being swirled about all of the time. That's the problem. There's nothing wrong with having, things you're a fan of and being a part of groups for things and group chats. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, I'm very grateful for the internet for that reason. But if it is only to talk about the things you hate and to shit on things 24/7, it's fucking exhausting. It's draining. Like it's just like, what is the reason for this? What's the point of this? So
That's actually the perfect way to sum it up. It's like you wind up spending so much time talking about things you hate when it could be so much better to talk about things that you like, because you're not when you and everyone has moments, things that they hate, things that they complain about, but when you spend so much time just getting that kind of like distaste and that anger and all that stuff, that kind of shit will follow you around.
oh
So
yeah.
I'd much rather talk about I'm looking at my wall of movies, Ronin or The Last Starfighter or True Romance, and why I love them all, than talk about, why I hated Batman v Superman or something like that. That horse is, it's way dead, and you're
Yeah.
still beaten. It's like done. Move on.
Right. Yeah, and I think that there's multiple sides of fandom and multiple sides of being passionate about things, and that's kind of where it went from there, is over multiple like eras or whatever of like going through different Facebook groups and whatnot in different
Yeah.
iterations. I think that Jim and I, at least, just to speak for the two of us, we found the best route was like what Jim said, was just if we're gonna yap positively about the things that we like, and we can shit on things, but like it's not gonna be taking up the brunt of the thing, yeah, like I said, we've been through many iterations of Facebook groups, of podcasts, of what movie trivia, whatnot, and we're here, and we're back. This is us, and we're gonna be talking more about just all kinds of stuff we're fans of, whether it's movies or TV shows. The only guarantee I can guarantee is no guarantee, which is that we will not be talking. No, don't think about it. Don't think about it. We will not be. We'll be talking about multiple different things every week, I imagine, or every episode.
Yeah. Call it freeform thought. Just,
Yep.
we might have certain things, certain tentpole things you always want to talk about, but it's going to be random things. I'm going to be throwing in references to, like I said, Van Damme movies, or just looking at my movie wall, Jack Frost, not the Michael Keaton one. And you just kind of, and Dead Heat, which is a buddy cop zombie movie starring Treat Williams and Joe Piscopo. That is a thing. It exists. I don't know that anyone else will
Is
like to talk about it, but you'll throw it in little comments here and there. It's kind of like what we were saying. Will we still make fun of things? Sure, but it'll be in a much more lighthearted way, and not a toxic, vindictive way,
Sure.
which I feel like we used to kind of tend to go towards. And not to blame it on the people we used to discuss it with. However, because everyone's responsible for themselves. However, if you surround yourself with all of that, it's bound to rub off on you and you will feed it just like it will feed you. You break away from it, and then you can have a little bit more fun.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, and we I think especially I'm not going to be that guy and be like in these current times, but I don't. A little positivity never hurt anyone, right? Like I think there's not a whole lot of things to be like to not be anxious or very negative about right now. So
Yes.
I think it
Yes.
couldn't hurt to just have a goofy little YouTube channel where we can talk shit about things. Um, yeah. So, in light of that, Jim, have you tell us about some recent TV shows, movies, whatever you've been watching? What's the
Well,
latest thing?
okay, so there's a 2000s movie. It's about this guy. He meets this girl on a train, and it's kind of a casual encounter. He doesn't realize the significance of it until the train ride's over, and then his friends kind of get on him like, "Oh, she was really great," and it stars two members of the pop band In Sync. It's called, On the Line. I think it was 2003. I told you I was going to get that in. Google On the Line. I think it was 2003, starring Lance Bass, Joey Fatone, and Emmanuel. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Shikri. I don't know. Anyway,
Uh huh.
no. So
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap
something
it
that
up now.
caught
We're done. We're gonna cut it. Thank you. Bye.
no.
I was just ordering a pizza.
No.
Sorry. What were you talking about?
Tell Lance Bass I said hello. Um, No, so there was a pretty big major TV show from the 2000s that I somehow never watched. It just got through, and it's one of those movies or one of those TV shows where, and it's similar with movies where you hear it hyped up so much that all you hear about it over and over and over. It's the greatest thing ever. It's the greatest thing ever. And especially with TV shows back then, it's not when everything was 8 to 13 episodes. This is when they were like over 20 episodes a season.
Yeah.
But randomly, I'm a couple weeks ago, I'm on Netflix. And when you turn on Netflix, it'll just kind of pop something up right at you and start autoplaying. And I'm laying there and I'm like, you know what? I'll check out the first episode of Lost. And now I am 12 episodes in, so I'm assuming it's kind of the halfway point of
Oh yeah.
season one.
Perfectly the halfway point.
Uh,
Yeah.
and now that's one of those things where I've told a number of people, yourself included, uh, that hey, I started watching Lost, and I get a couple reactions. I get, wait, you never watched Lost? I get that judgment, but then I get I guess the similar thing. Now I don't know how it really ends. I have my thoughts based on things I've heard throughout the years, so my expectations. However, I would imagine that the backlash I've heard to the ending is similar to Game of Thrones. Um, so I'm a little tentative about it, but I don't. There were some people who were surprised I was willing to go through the whole thing, knowing that expectations on the series finale were substandard. But it's very different. I could watch it at my leisure. It's not something like the old days of TV where you were waiting an entire week on the edge of your seat, and then once a season ends in May, you got to wait until September. It's kind of like the pressure is low. So if it doesn't work out, I can kind of look at it and be like, well, the show was mostly good,
Yeah.
but yeah, I didn't care for how they ended it, and it's not as big of a deal this far ahead of time.
Right. I actually think it's a benefit to. So I think this is the perfect. Like when Jim started watching, this is the perfect timing because I myself just finished, probably like 2 or so months ago, watching the show for the first time. The same thing. Like I had put off for a while. I don't know why I'd never watched it initially. I know it was a little on the younger side when it first started, but I just it just was never really on my radar. Saw that it was on Netflix. This year is the 20th anniversary of the show. Back in like October, I think, was the 20th anniversary. So I thought, no better time. And I actually do think we are at a benefit of watching it this far removed because you mentioned Game of Thrones, which is it's very easy to compare the two with like the ending backlash. Having watched the show, and of course I'm not going to spoil anything. This is also for the folks watching at home. This will be the only constant throughout this channel. We're going to check in pretty much every video with Jim on his progress on the show. And having watched the whole show, I'm not going to spoil anything, of course, but I think that the backlash that happened, one, I think it was overblown. Like, I think that I was aware that people were very polarized on the ending. I don't think that it was at the level of Game of Thrones, but I think that, like, a lot of people who felt a certain way about it, I wouldn't say there's a wrong way to watch the show, but, like, they were people who were watching it for the J.J. Abrams of it and not for the Damon Lindelof of it, if that makes any sense. So J.J. Abrams kind of co-created this show with a guy named Damon Lindelof. I know a lot of folks are more familiar with one of those two names. I was as well. You know, Abrams is known for his mystery box bullshit, right? Like that. I feel like Lost is mostly attributed to that. The thing is, J.J. Abrams left this show about where you are at in the show, about halfway through season 1, because he had to work on a little movie called Mission Impossible 3.
I'm gonna find her and I'm gonna hurt her.
Kill her in front of you. God, I miss Philip Seymour Hoffman. Yeah, so he left the show to work on that movie, and he didn't come back. He has that credit that he created the show, and of course that is no small thing. But it really, after that point, was a Damon Lindelof show, and the other writers that were involved. And Damon Lindelof, who also, you know, he's written a couple movies. He wrote the movie Prometheus, the Alien series. He wrote the show The Leftovers, and he wrote the show Watchmen. He's also going to be writing the Lanterns show in James Gunn's new DC universe, which I'm very, very excited about. And now, after watching Lost, like 10 times more excited about. Love Green Lantern, and I really like his writing. So I just think it's interesting that you're going to watch the show and kind of understand more what I'm talking about. But Abrams is the ideas guy, right? He's the genre guy. He wrote Fringe. Like, he's the sci-fi concept guy and the mystery box guy. I think Lindelof is the thematic guy. A lot of the backstory stuff that you're seeing, those flashbacks for different characters, that's a Lindelof thing. He brought the idea of the flashback to the writer's room. And I think that when people got to the end of the show, of course, when you're watching 6 seasons of a show, you're going to be wrapped up in mysteries and wanting to know the answers. And it's encouraged to watch TV like that. But I think if not everything is answered in a satisfying way, you tend to kind of like overlook all of the satisfying like conclusions to character arcs in the process. And the whole thing, the same thing happened with Game of Thrones, right? Like, we were waiting to see the whole time who was going to be on the Iron Throne and what was going to happen with the White Walkers and all of that. And, you know, they really fumbled the bag in terms of like satisfying conclusions to that.
So much in every way possible. All the main characters, I gotta say that all of the main characters, every single one in Game of Thrones, they fumbled. The one they get closest to not fumbling is Arya.
Yeah.
Everyone else, Jaime and Cersei Lannister, they could have easily. It's still the moment that I always bring up. After they, spoiler, after the whatever caves in on them and they die, and then you see Tyrion's coming and looking, and you see just a pile of rubble, and then it's clear, like 5 feet away from them. 3 to 5 feet to the side. Couldn't you have just shuffled over?
Yep.
Jon Snow, they exile him.
Yeah.
But then the Unsullied are leaving, so I don't know why they didn't just go, dude, come. It's fine. Come back.
Right.
Sansa just kind of goes belly up at the end and does nothing. She just kind of agrees with everyone. They do with Daenerys. Tyrion, for someone who the entire show run, he had such brilliant lines.
Yeah.
The stuff they had him reading at the end was awful, especially with his support of Bran.
Yeah.
Who, I remember Bran's whole story of being like, he's not Bran anymore, he's the Raven. But then I guess the Raven wanted to be the Raven, what? Oh my gosh. I got a quote, Jets quarterback, head coach, and general manager Aaron Rodgers, when they asked him after the fact, and he was echoing, he said, Tyrion goes, what better story than Bran's? It's like everyone.
Every character. That's
really everyone.
Story. Yeah.
He built up Jaime and, was it Gwendolyn?
Brienne. Gwendolyn's the actress.
Yeah. And you thought they were going that way, and then, I'm going to go die with my sister again.
I'm going to Going to go back on 8 seasons of character development and just backslide to my sister.
It's
Yeah.
it. You know what? It reminded me of, um, and I don't think you're. I don't think you're a fan of this guy, but it reminded me of an interview that I saw with Kevin Smith a very long time ago, where the original ending to Clerks is that Dante gets shot by a robber and
Mm-hmm.
it just ends.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying it might have been Jim Jarmusch who was telling him, or if it's the other guy, it's the guy I'm not going to say who was ahead of Miramax, um, who told him, "You're just doing it because you don't know how to end your movie."
Yeah.
And I felt like that's what Game of Thrones was.
Yeah.
That they were like, "Oh, we only have a couple episodes. What are they going to do? Well, most of them got to be dead, so I don't know, just do it." And it was so, gosh, man. But I want to ask you a question. And anyone, listening or watching this, I would ask them too. The, I guess what you've heard about the Lost finale, and you've seen it. I obviously haven't seen the ending yet. How would you compare the justification in how quote unquote bad or disappointing it was, Lost versus Game of Thrones?
Yeah. So I like that these two shows are talked about together. I'm also so I just finished the shows where I'm listening to a podcast about the show. That's how deep in I am. Like I'm rewatching and kind of listening to a podcast about it called The Storm, and they draw comparisons a lot, especially in that ending. And I would say, like I said, I think that the way that Lost kind of ends more favorably is that there may be some answers that you don't get for some mysteries, or there may be some answers that are less than satisfying to some like island mysteries. But when it comes to the characters themselves, by and large, I would say almost everyone on the show who you care about has a satisfying ending when the show ends, and that is where Game of Thrones failed. Like you were just talking about, like from Jon Snow to Tyrion, like literally everyone, even the ones who like end up kind of unscathed or are still alive, like I would say Jon and Tyrion, they're still just not the characters we loved. You know, Tyrion is
Right.
basically rolling over for Bran, and like you said, Jon is exiled and he had to kill the fucking woman he loved, and he had to, like he's lost Ygritte and Dany now. Like he just has to just go off by himself. He has Tormund, that's cool, but like he's not even getting a spin-off show anymore, right? They're not even making that anymore. So
Oh, they saw it. They're not doing it.
as far as I know, I feel like every day it changes, but today I believe the status is that it's dead in the water, which is
Do
very
you
sad.
think? Do you think they made that decision because now I haven't watched House of the Dragon? Um, to me, and I realize this could be a completely short-sighted view, and people could hear this and be like, "Oh, don't, no, 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 no." However, it left such a bad taste in my mouth. The fact that now they're coming out House of the Dragon, which is a prequel, which we kind of know how all of that's going to end up to eventually set up Game of Thrones, the history that we already know about. I'm like, why am I going to get invested in this?
Yeah, I that's how I felt, and I was very burned by the ending. So I didn't watch House of the Dragon live. I have since caught up on season one and most of season two. The thing I would say about that is that we do know how things are going to end up, but I don't think they're necessarily as interested in setting up the events of Game of Thrones as they are in just setting up the name Targaryen as like this very powerful name in the universe, which is cool because it's like we know that going into Game of Thrones, and we know who they are and all of that, and we see Daenerys, but like the people that they're setting up in House of the Dragon are very fascinating characters. You got like
Was
Matt
that
Smith and all of them. So
yes? Oh, I was about to say Terminator Genesis's Matt Smith.
Morbius is Matt Smith.
Oh God, it's just cut. Just everyone stop. You don't even have to come back to this, podcast, videocast, whatever. Just go to Google and search Matt Smith dance. That's it. That's really,
That's cinema to me.
when I inevitably die, probably much sooner than later. Sorry for being morbid.
Funny.
Um, just put it on my tombstone.
Yeah.
Just write my name, and then just be like, instead of you put my name, you put the years, and then Google Matt Smith dance. That's it.
Yeah, so continue the kind of Game of Thrones and Lost kind of comparison, you don't have to like one to one give us your comparisons with characters, but you said you're 12 episodes in at this point.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you just watched whatever the case may be, the Kate episode. I think it's like her second flashback episode. Um, you know, so far you're halfway through season 1. Who are your standouts? Who are your favorite characters? I can probably guess at least favorite character, but we all had the same least favorite character in season 1, so you're not alone there. Yeah.
So my favorite is Jack. Jack, I feel like, and I was whenever you're watching something, you're gonna see, I guess, how not necessarily who is like you, but who you feel kind of mirrors back qualities that you think you have.
Yeah.
But then how you look at yourself is going to be different than how someone else looks at you. So I remember asking you if that was, and you gave me the same answer. The fact that a lot of how I think and my emotional capability and relations with other people and everything, a lot of it is right there with Jack. So it's easy to see myself in that. Um, and I'm a really big fan of Matthew Fox, so he's definitely my favorite. As the episodes went on, maybe not in the first couple because he wasn't as much in the forefront. I've really come to appreciate Hurley.
Love her. Yeah.
In a big way. Even the fact that he's just like, come on, man, let's play golf.
Yeah.
And in a show that everything's so serious, everything's so dire, yeah, that would be
You need that.
something you would want to do. You
Yeah.
need that. You need to take the tension off. You need a little bit of a balance there.
Right.
And then I would say Locke. Locke is super interesting. The
Yep.
moment, of course, spoilers for a 20-year-old show. The moment where you find out that he was in a wheelchair, I was, and
All-time
it's funny
moment in that show. Yeah.
dude, because now I wonder. I'm going to ask you a question. I wonder if I missed this, or I'll just tell you as I saw it. When he signs up for like that backpacking
The
like
walkabout.
trek thing,
Yeah.
yeah, he's in the office and he's complaining, "Why can't I do it? Why can't I do it?" And the guy's like, "No, you can't. You can't." And I think that he's only saying that because of his age. Did we know prior to that he was in a wheelchair? We
We did
didn't.
not. No.
'Cause all you saw him was sitting in his
It's the
bed.
genius of the show, right? Like it's yeah.
And then, yeah, and then you peel back and you reveal he's in a wheelchair, and then all of a sudden he's on the beach and he has full use. I was like,
That toe wiggle again. Yeah, it's
what?
genius. Yeah. Yeah, but I
So
yeah.
yeah, my three favorites, I would say those. I still Saeed.
Saeed. Yeah.
Saeed. As the episodes are going on, I find he's quickly climbing the most.
Yes. Good.
And gosh, I just cannot stand Sawyer.
Oh.
And
Wow.
yeah, I'm not going Boone.
I was expecting Boone and Shannon, kind of the
I'm
twofer.
not going
Yeah.
Shannon. Shannon, yes, because
Okay.
I'm like, God, you suck. But
Does Boone get a pass because he
Sawyer,
had that 6 episode run on Smallville? So he just immediately gets a pass from you?
yeah, because of that, as his, I'm the only person who, if you take like the entire population and you put someone on a spot, you put a gun to their head and say, what was Ian Somerhalder's character's name in Smallville? I would go Adam Knight.
Adam Knight.
But because of that and his performance in Rules of Attraction, I'm giving him a bye. But gosh, Sawyer, I think is a combination of a couple things. One, I don't respond well to the typical, oh, he's bad boy, rough around the edges, and the girls like him. I'm like, all right. Um, but you could definitely tell that a lot of his character is the post 9/11,
Yeah.
uh, racism or whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. And I've heard from a lot of people, yourself included, that they give him more depth,
Hmm.
and then you peel back other layers, and then he turns out being a very, very good character.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. But those early episodes, I'm like,
Oh, it's
dude,
rough.
why are you being so difficult? Like you're
Yeah,
being
the
an ass
racist
for no
nicknames he
reason.
comes up for people, and yeah,
Dude, he's just calling Saeed a terrorist, and I'm like,
yeah,
dude, this, like, how's it? But then there are a lot of people like that,
yeah. Especially
especially
in
now.
2004. Well, yeah, yeah, and now as well. Yeah, yeah,
Um, I just saw a video with not to get too heavy. I just saw a video with Nazis parading in 2024 with Nazi flags, and
Yeah.
I'm like aliens, just take me now,
Please.
please. Why does Lance Guest from the last Starfighter get all of the glory? Like, just take me too. I can play a video game. Um, but yeah, Boone doesn't bother me. However, I see the reasons why he would bother other people.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm just like, oh no, he's a great guy.
Right.
He's extremely, like, you could tell and Shannon I think even says this to him. He wants to be the hero,
Yep.
and he's just trying too hard. It's like, dude, this isn't about being the hero. It's about being stuck in this situation that is the worst ever
Yeah.
and just doing your part. Like, sometimes, and I think about it, and it's a brother sister thing, and I think about it, I'm like, well, what if I was there with my sister? I wouldn't be running away everywhere. I would be like, I'm staying here and
Yeah.
I'm watching her. Like, and he doesn't, I mean, Shannon's, oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
maybe that's why.
Right.
But in a show like this with that many characters, you can't have the same archetypes. You
Sure.
have to have different personalities, different functions and things like that. So I get it. But as of right now, I would say Jack number one, Hurley two, Locke three, Saeed is climbing up the ranks, and Sawyer. And I gotta say, Kate's pissing me off a little bit.
The Kate. So I'm gonna, because I just watched the show. I'm fully like into the lore behind the scenes and all of that. And for anyone watching, yeah. So I guess if you're watching this and you've never seen Lost, like the two of us, 3 or 4 months ago or whatever, you're safe up to the point that Jim has watched. I'll say that. We're gonna obviously talk openly about whatever you've seen, but anything past, whatever the case may be, you will not be spoiled on. So just to talk about this first part of season one, the Kate thing's really interesting to me because she was also one I went back. You will go back and forth on her the entire 6 seasons of this show, but especially in season one. Initially, the writers of the show, their plan was that they were gonna cast a really big name as Jack. You could say going into this show, the biggest name is probably like Charlie because he had just come off of the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah.
Or if you're a big what is it, Three's Company fan, like you are, I'm assuming Matthew Fox. Like, there's a couple kind of big names.
You said Three's Company and not Party of Five.
Same thing, man. Whatever. Party of Five.
Don't you disrespect the name of John Ritter from 1990's It, who literally said, "Is that you or is it the clown?" You know what?
Yeah.
Screw it.
Uh-huh.
Put that on my tombstone. Is it you or is it the clown?
I've heard that once or twice. Yeah. So going into this show, the writers had pitched that they were going to cast a really big name as Jack. I'm going to give you a multiple choice in a second. You can guess who it was. But they're going to cast a huge name as Jack, and they're going to kill him off in the pilot. And it was going to be this huge swerve. This main character you think is going to be the big doctor leader guy, and then the main character of the show was going to be Kate. And the network said, nope, you're not killing off the straight white guy because this is 2004 and we don't do that. And so
Yeah.
they kept him. And because of that, I think the writers kind of scrambled for what to do with Kate. And you can very much see that in season one because she certainly is one of like the main characters. I think you could argue that like the 4 main characters of Lost are certainly at the point you're at. It's Jack, it's Locke, it's Kate, and it's Sawyer. Like they get the most play, especially Jack and Locke are the kind of the 2 opposing forces of the show at this point, in terms of like ideologies and like how they feel about being on the island. Right?
Jack is trying. He's the altruistic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna help people. I'm gonna do the right thing. And Locke is like, we're in this situation. We got to do whatever the hell that we can do.
And Locke has also just experienced this huge, like, life-changing thing happen to him.
Yeah.
So he probably has more faith in the island than most people would,
Right. It's one of those things where if someone tells you about something, as opposed to you experiencing something, that is going to have a heavy influence on you. Plus, Locke, what they do about him is you can tell he's, throughout the course of the show, he's probably going to do some questionable things. However, he's quick to acknowledge and shield other people.
Yeah.
To be like, you shouldn't be the one doing this. let other people handle it.
Right.
But yeah, and so you give me multiple choice. Now,
Yeah.
it makes sense why they would turn to Matthew Fox, because I would think, without hearing the names first, if they're going to be, if they're going to be, I'm just going to throw out random names out there. If you're like, okay, we're going to get Leonardo DiCaprio, Mel Gibson or Al Pacino, they're obviously not going to sign up
Yeah.
for a full television deal, but they might sign up if it's only one episode.
Right. Exactly. So I'm trying to think of like 2004 big names. You have your multiple choice of options. You have, let me think. You have Hugh Dillon. That's the first name that came to my mind. You have Michael Keaton, and you have Andy Garcia.
I hope the fan in me hopes it's Michael Keaton. Was it Michael
It
Keaton?
was Michael Keaton. Yeah. Can you imagine?
What?
Can you imagine?
I
So the
can't
thing
imagine.
is, so these days, I think it's more common for like a big movie star to sign on to a TV show, depending on if it's on like HBO
Yeah.
or whatnot.
Well, TV was always looked at as like a rung down.
Yeah.
Now I would almost say it's flipped.
Yeah.
Because of shorter runs, limited series, you're not doing 20 to 24 episodes a season. You're doing 8. You could get a Colin Farrell, to be a penguin.
For Penguin. Right.
But wow, Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
I can't imagine watching Michael Keaton, realizing, oh my gosh, it's Michael Keaton. Wait, what? They just killed him? Like, I can't imagine that.
And I love Michael Keaton, huge fan. I can't really. It's hard to visualize, and I of course I have a lot more of the show to draw from, but like it's hard to visualize him in those early scenes, like chasing his, well, we don't know what it is, but his like maybe ghost dad through the woods and shit, and like
Ghost dad
stuff. Yeah.
Bill Cosby's in them woods.
Do not catch up to him, Michael. Trust us. You don't know this yet, but do not catch and do
I
not
know
take
you,
anything
I
he
know you
offers you.
think it's really weird that you found Jello in the forest, but just leave it alone.
Do not.
He sees the coffin in the distance, and all you just hear is Theo. You're like, no.
Jello pop. I think that the reason was that he didn't want to be killed off. Like, he either wanted, I'm going to lead your show for all 60 or however long, or, I don't think he wanted to just pop up and then be killed off, especially for the money they were probably offering, I would have to assume.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, but yeah. So I think that kind of gives some context to Kate, because she was their plan, and then they kind of had to scrap that plan, and so I don't really fault that to them in the early part of season 1. I do agree though that she's a very frustrating character, because she just kind of goes back and forth and makes some weird choices and has a weird backstory, and also just because of, again, it's a 2004 show, most of the time it's just there to be like this thing that Jack and Sawyer are fighting over. Unfortunately.
Yeah, you have her standing, and we gotta get this shot of her in her bra, and we gotta show her, and granted, hey, I'm not complaining, but there certainly is one of those things, and I'm not surprised to hear about it, because J.J. Abrams, a lot of his stuff, he goes with female leads.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I think Alias had to be his first, like, his breakthrough thing, right?
Yeah, it was that or Felicity.
Felicity, yeah. Yes, Felicity, Alias, even Daisy Ridley in Star Wars. It's like
Fringe.
yeah. So it's not surprising to hear that, but yeah, Kate definitely was waffling. And it's funny, and maybe this is further proof that I like myself with Jack so much, is when she's in that last episode where she's talking about, and she's crying and she's emotional. She's like, and I had to kill the man that I loved. And Jack is just kind of like, I was watching it, and I was just like, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a dick move to just leave while she's sitting there. Like, clearly something
Yeah,
very
but I
traumatic
think at
happened,
that
but
point,
yeah.
yes, it was a little bit of a dick move, but I think at that point, Jack is, and obviously I'm only 12 episodes in, you can tell that shit is weighing on Jack, but he's trudging through because he's kind of like, I don't know if I don't do this, who is going to? I am the doctor. I am the one who's supposed to look and care for all these people,
Yeah.
but I got limits, and right now I just do not have the capacity for this. That's
Yeah.
that's how I look at it, and I'm just like, I can only imagine. I mean, plus when now she does give him an out. To her credit, she does give him an out where she offers to tell him like her backstory, and he's at first he's just like, I don't want to hear it, don't tell me. But then later, once you see was he an FBI agent or was he
The
a
U.S.
U.S.
Marshal?
Marshal?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
Marshal.
U.S. Marshal.
Hmm.
Once you discover him and then Kate's picture, and then all of a sudden he wants to know, and she's like, "Well, I told you." It's like
Yeah.
it's the back and forth. A TV show that has to fill 20 episodes a season is gonna put that stuff in because
Right.
otherwise, how are you gonna draw that out? It's not a show like it's not a show like Smallville or Buffy. As much as I love those shows, you're putting. I mean, Smallville was over 200 episodes.
Hmm.
You are going to have filler, just dumb filler episodes.
Yeah.
Lost, you can't really do that because everything they do is so incredibly important.
Right.
So, what is your only option? Well, your option is to constantly move the characters around like little chess pieces. So you kind of have to force the interactions this way.
Right.
But yeah, it was a little, it was a little waffling, but I wasn't necessarily surprised by it.
Hmm.
But
No,
yeah,
I'm glad to hear that in terms of favorites, you've got Locke. Locke is my favorite character. Sawyer is actually also my other favorite character. So I'm curious to see where you end up with him towards the end of the show. But no, again, like I'm with you in season one.
wait, yeah, no, this is done. I'm not
I'll
doing
have a
this. I'm
pepperoni and I'll have he starts out, and again, 2004. He's a post 9/11 character. He's a very overtly racist character in that first season. There's no getting around it. And honestly, to be honest, in the same way that he is a racist character, Saeed is a very racistly written character as well. Just to put it
yeah.
out there. Love Saeed, and I'm glad that he's like climbing the ranks for you too, because he's a favorite of mine. But it was like, I think they were a bit like congratulatory of like patting themselves on the backs that they had an Iraqi lead character.
It
And
was
that
it was
enough,
on the nose.
Yeah.
Of course the Iraqi character is the one who's so okay with killing
It's got a background in
and knows
torture.
all this different ways of torture. It's like
Yeah.
a little bit on the
It's
nose
a little
there.
rough.
What are we trying to do? Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, no. So Sawyer is a tough season one hang. I just it's one where it sounds annoying after a while, but just you gotta hang in and you gotta like stick with them for a while. But Jack is great because I was just talking to someone about this. I think there's a thing about like protagonists or like main characters in shows that I love. I don't typically my favorite character is not typically the main character. Like usually it'll be like the third or fourth main character, like Locke in this show, or whatever others. Game of Thrones is probably Jaime Lannister before season 8. But the Jack archetype, or like to use the Game of Thrones, the Jon Snow archetype is always interesting, but never a favorite. But I think Lost more than most shows, Jack is a very fascinating character because he's not just this like. He's not just an amazing like doctor and like the hero of the show. You get the impression of that maybe in the first episode because he jumps into action pretty quickly, and then very soon after you're like, oh, this guy's kind of fucked up with the ghost dad shit, and the first time you get his flashbacks, you're like, ooh, he is carrying some insane baggage onto this island, as is everyone. But like I think he is a very. I'm glad they didn't kill him off. Like I'm glad that was not what they went through with, because he's a very fascinating character. And I'm curious to see if he stays at the top of your list throughout the 6 seasons of the show.
Yeah. One interesting thing that you kind of just made me realize is if you go through the characters of Lost, of course, all of this I'm saying with the caveat of, there's going to be a lot revealed that I don't know yet. But all the characters, they don't have a support system, even in their backstory.
Yeah.
Something something bad happened to every single one of them in their backstory. Even is his name Michael, the
Yeah.
dad?
Mm-hmm.
Even he points out that like he doesn't really know his son,
Right.
and his son seems to know a lot more.
Right.
Um, because all his father's doing is telling him not what not to do,
Yeah.
and you know when you get older, you realize why, but then as a kid, not giving the reasons why and not giving the answers are just going to wind up making them frustrated. But you know, Roswell's what's her name? Emily DeRaven?
Yeah. What a pull.
Um, the Hills Have Eyes remakes, Emily DeRaven. You don't. I don't think. They got into the backstory of how like she was in this loving committed relationship, and then the boyfriend assures her, and then bolts.
Yeah.
Um, Charlie and his brother, like all this stuff. There is a break.
Yeah.
They either lost a loved one because they died, or they were always in animosity with it. It goes for Sawyer,
Uh-huh.
it goes for Jack, it goes for Kate. Like all of them are, gosh, I was gonna say all of them really are lost, and then I'm like, um, got, uh, but yeah, they really are just stranded without a life preserver.
Yeah. Hey, ABC. Yeah, no, it's a good point, and you brought up Charlie too. That's the thing too, is like watching it now. Like I said, we have the benefit of watching it after it aired to have maybe more realistic expectations, but we also have the benefit of just like the current times. And I think that of all the characters, like we mentioned, Said and Sawyer, we mentioned some of the kind of problematic writing in 2004. I think Charlie is a character I expected to be a fan favorite because I love The Lord of the Rings and I love Don Monahan, and even just the way he's written initially, it's like, okay, this is an interesting character. Maybe it's because I don't give a fuck about like Oasis, and he's clearly like an Oasis analog. I think he's the worst age character of the entire main cast because every time he's on screen, I just want to punch him in the fucking face. Like he's just such an asshole all of the time, and it's not like a deliberate asshole like Sawyer is, or sometimes like other people. He's just clueless, and he very clearly just thinks he knows best. And a drug addiction backstory is just not that compelling. It's just like, okay, we're doing this. The rock star has the drug addiction, of course he does. So yeah, I love Don Monahan. I think he's great. I think he's a very good performance. But yeah, not for me.
It's funny you say that because another friend of mine who did watch Lost all the way back then, that is his most hated character because he's just like you just watch him, and I think the whole rock star drug addiction, it just feels kind of shallow.
Mm-hmm.
It what it felt like is they had the list of all these characters and they came up with all these backstories, and it's like they were exhausted by the time they got to Charlie, and they're like, oh well, he plays an instrument. All right, heroin. Yeah, yeah,
Right,
okay.
yeah.
Um, and then they were just kind of spent, and you see him going through, and it's another thing that's funny though, and I know I have it in the back of my mind. I don't know who it's going to be. I could probably venture some guesses, and it's not a matter of if, but when. In a show like this, a lot of the cast is going to turn over, a lot of the cast is going to die. I know there are people who were on the show that I haven't seen yet. For example, I know Michelle Rodriguez is popping up at some
Oh
point.
man, I was hoping you wouldn't like know that because it's such a
I,
funny
I,
like, what the hell is she doing here?
I, I, I know it just because, God, it's going to sound awful. I think there was some sort of Fast and Furious featurette where it was talking about their careers. And it just mentioned she was in Lost. I know that weird guy. I think he's a bad guy, but the weird guy with the beady eyes and the short hair who was in that
Yeah,
Person of Interest
Michael
show.
Emerson.
I think.
Michael Emerson.
Yeah, I know he shows up. So there are people that I know. It's only a matter of time, and then you can't keep growing the cast, and you need to have the threats be real. So there are going to be characters who are going to die. So it'd be curious. And what I might do is I might list some characters and then guess which season they die in. Maybe I'll do that and then see what happens. But you know, It's promising. I think the two biggest advantages that I have is we've touched on the first one is the fact that I'm watching it now 20 years after it's began,
Yeah.
and that I've tempered my expectations. So I care more about the characters than I do the ending. Like it's,
Right.
the ending I hope I like it.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to think there are not a lot of shows that know how to stick the landing.
No, it's a small
I
list.
would, yeah, I was incredibly disappointed with Game of Thrones. I was Can you? All right, there's one show in particular. It was a half-hour show. How they ended it, I was so annoyed and disappointed.
How I
How
Met Your
I Met
Mother.
Your Mother.
Yeah.
How they did that. And theirs I think is one of the worst because you didn't. I'm gonna. This is what's gonna happen. This is gonna be the big sizzle reel for the debut episode. I am going to give a full blown, genuine compliment to the Game of Thrones finale. As bad as it was, they knew what they wanted to do,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a season long plan, and they went for it. I don't agree with it. I think it was dog shit, but it was a choice that they made, and they were like, we are going down this road, and they paved the road, and they went all the way down.
Yeah.
How I Met Your Mother built up this whole long thing, and then the last minute just pulled the rug out and said, no. And a lot of people at the time, I remember, thought that was going to happen. I was one who thought it was going to happen, but tried to actively convince myself it wasn't. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, they won't do this. They won't do this. And then they did it. That is what I think was so annoying about it. If they opened up the show, if they opened up the show of How I Met Your Mother, um, and established that the mother wasn't alive anymore, and
Yes.
that was the reason he was telling the story,
Yep.
then I think the whole other, ending and kind of things like that, maybe it doesn't work out as great as they would have hoped, but I don't think it would have been as bad.
Yeah.
The fact that you spent all this time waiting for the mother and then they cast someone who
Oh
was
my god.
phenomenal,
I know. I have so many. Yeah. So many
phenomenal.
friends are watching The Penguin and raving about her, and she's great in The Penguin from what I've seen. But I'm
I'm
like,
just like,
go
she
watch
is
her in
mother.
How I Met Your Mother. Yeah.
Yes. And just to at the end be like, hey, but I'll never forget it when I was watching and they're showing like all the little snapshots and he's like, and I was with her with this and with this. And when she got sick, I was sitting there with some friends, and as soon as he says when she got sick, I went, oh fuck this. It was, man.
It's really it's like deflating a balloon. Like it's just you
Yes.
really think they're gonna do yeah. And the only credit I'm not even gonna say it's credit because it's still it's a decision I fucking hate and loathe and despise and I wish they didn't do it. But my sister was also a huge fan of the show and like me she hated the ending and we would talk about it every now and then. She pointed out how there is a scene in I know this is the favorite episode of yours in The Time Travelers. There's a really like just gut wrenching scene at the end of the episode where he's like running to her apartment and he's like pouring his heart out. And of course, with the context of the end of the show, makes it like 10 times sadder, of course. I don't think you need that though to make that scene effective. Like even if she had stayed alive, or maybe if they just like split up, that would be sad too. But like whatever, if she was still alive, it's that scene is still really emotional because it's still someone saying, "I want more time with you," which is like that's a sentiment that anyone can relate with. So her being dead just is a really like sour, kind of like cruel like punch to end on.
Yeah.
Like I feel like their mo was always like we want to do a real life kind of experience of these New York people and we want to make it as authentic as possible. I think that worked for stuff like Marshall's dad. Like that episode was great because that was a great subversion of like you didn't really see it coming, but it didn't derail the show and it just added more depth to Marshall and to Lily and like
Yeah.
very good episode. But I think
Yeah.
ending 9 seasons of a show called How I Met Your Mother on that is just a very sour note to leave off on, and then to just be like, no, there's no more. Fuck you. Maybe watch the Hillary Duff show in 10 years. Like I don't, I just.
Oh, That's gonna be our next podcast, guys. No, yeah, but to differentiate, like you said, the thing that was brilliant about Marshall's father dying is because it is a very real life thing that like life is moving on, you don't realize it, you're thinking about other things, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
that person's gone and you just have to deal with it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, they should just call it How I Met Your Dead Mother. And then find out that it is a legacy sequel to The Ghost Whisperer,
Ah, yes.
and Jennifer Love Hewitt and Jamie Kennedy pop up.
Hmm.
But Jamie Kennedy from back then, he kind of looks like he's
Yeah.
lost a little bit. But for another time, did they cancel? They had to have canceled the How I Met Your Father, right?
I would assume so, just because I don't hear anything about it anymore. But to be fair, I only heard about it in like its first week, and then I've heard nothing. So,
About so I know Robin shows up.
yeah, Barney does as well, I think.
Barney, but I think it's in between that time before, so like Robin's single, and I
Yeah.
guess Ted is still with the mother.
Yes.
Um, it's
Yeah.
what are they doing? What
Yeah.
are they doing? Just make new shows.
Just make new
Don't make
shows.
old stuff. Yeah, don't make old stuff.
Right.
You're not gonna help it. You're not gonna. That's my whole thing. I'd be like, what is it gonna help? Like I get why you're doing it, viewers and everything, but for people who probably have very important uh, jobs or whatever you want to say, I would love to line them up and be like, okay, can you answer with an honest face in a genuine manner and tell me that you thought How I Met Your Father was a good idea and was going to be a success, or did you lose a bet?
Yeah, I think that like we can't just coast on "I know that thing" forever. Like it's just there's so many red letter media jokes about that, but like we
Oh
can't
yeah,
entertainment cannot just be "I know what that is." That can't just be what we make now. It is unfortunately it's like the state of things, but
everything. I mean, even with the gigantic bigot landing the new Harry Potter TV show.
yeah,
Like I like the story of Harry Potter, but I so badly want that show to fail
hmm,
because right now J.K. Rowling is just trying to dunk on as many people in such a harsh and like vile way,
yeah,
like an intentional way where I want to say, okay, obviously you believe these things, but why do you find it necessary to just hang on Twitter and just talk shit to people you don't know, whom you've never met?
yeah,
Why?
yeah,
But that's what people want, so that's why you're going to get spin-offs, you're going to get remakes, you're going to get sequels, you're going to get prequels, you're going to get reimaginings. That's what people respond to, I guess. Except if you're The Rock. The Rock is, man, he's bombing everywhere and it's wonderful.
yeah. I what is it? The
It's
new
only wonderful, I gotta say this, it's only wonderful to watch because he comes across as so goddamn disingenuine.
he really
Like,
does. Like
he's the guy who's like,
yeah,
oh, I'm gonna tell you a great story, but let me record it first.
yeah.
Like, he comes across as that guy, and I'm just like, dude, did you see I know this is a tangent, but that's what Space Cowboys. Ooh yeah. Um, did you see the video that he was talking about? Whatever red is it just called Red
Red
One?
One, I think. Yeah.
Oh God, I feel like they just sent that into an AI generator.
I hope it's
Um,
also like Rogue One and everyone dies in the end, but it just doesn't make sense. Just Santa kills all
Darth
of them.
Vader shows up and he's actually Krampus. Um, but they had a little clip of The Rock talking about how he was watching Oppenheimer on the big
Oh my
screen.
god, yeah. Dude,
And then
dumbest thing.
he's talking about that's what I want for Red One. I'm like, dude,
Can you imagine sitting
what are you
down and
doing?
watching that movie and then being like, you know what would really make this better? Red One in this
Polar
theater.
bears, bro.
Chris Evans doing Ryan Reynolds. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna do an impression of my buddy Adam who actually talks like this, and it is the one of my favorite things. This is gonna sound like I'm exaggerating. This is how he talks. He'll be like, "Red One, bro." Like, yeah, Red One, gotta go watch that Rock movie, bro. And I love the dude. He's awesome, but he says it in a sarcastic manner. So he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
But he's my inner voice when I see The Rock do anything. Like the one where he's, I'm gonna give this guy who really looked out for me, I'm gonna give him a truck. But let me film it first. Like, dude, you don't have to do that. There was a funny thread of The Rock. I don't want to turn this into just talking shit on The Rock, but it's funny. There's a thread of it of, gosh, was it In and Out? It might be In and Out, where he would post and say, "Oh, this is the first time I'm trying In and Out. I had to try it." And then someone pulled up a post from 5 years prior where he did the exact same thing. I was dying laughing. I'm like, that's why you can never. Twitter is just, there's a post for everything, and there's someone who saves everything. It will come out, and it's lovely. Red One in theaters.
Go see it now. This has all just been a ploy to get you to go see Red One.
Which, I have a question. So Red One already came out.
It did.
I think maybe a week or two ago. It's already bombed. Do you think, because you would expect a movie like that would come out in December.
Yeah.
Do you think they pushed it ahead so they can get a streaming release by Christmas?
I think it's that, and I think that they wanted to beat... No, I don't know how big it's going to do, but I think they wanted to beat the whole Gladiator Wicked thing as well. Because that's...
Oh, I thought they were thinking about Nosferatu on Christmas.
Yeah, they were probably thinking about Nosferatu. Dude, that looks incredible.
Dude, I saw that, and I didn't... It's weird, because you see everything all the time coming. You see everyone posts when movies get announced and everything. I didn't know the movie was getting made until, I want to say, I was seeing The Substance, and they played the trailer for Nosferatu before it, and I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Dude.
And then as soon as I realized there was a Nosferatu movie, I'm like, dude, when is it coming out? And then you see it says Christmas. I'm like, motherfucker, I don't want to wait.
But, like, perfect release, because I love the idea of, like, a gothic horror on Christmas. That's how I'm spending my Christmas. No, it looks incredible. Yeah. Love the director. The Witch is a favorite of mine. Lighthouse. I can't wait. I love Willem Dafoe. Maybe the next episode will be more dedicated to kind of, like, our like, this last maybe 2 months of movies that we're looking forward to.
Yeah.
I just rewatched Gladiator, and it holds the fuck up. Like, it's such a good movie, so I can't wait for the second one.
Every single guy, I don't care who you are, I don't care how great you are or how much you suck in life, every guy, I don't know why those were my qualifiers,
but fucking suck, and I hate you, and I hate your mom.
You, and your parents don't love you, and they're the reason you got divorced. At least once in their life has done that Russell Crowe speech.
Oh, absolutely. I was doing it during the movie. My partner was like, shut up, I've never seen this. And I was like, you shut up. This is my Roman Empire. The Roman Empire is my Roman Empire.
You haven't seen it. You suck. Your parents don't love you. And your dog won't cuddle with you.
If we were stranded on an island, you would be the Charlie and I would be the Jack. Yeah.
You're hooked on heroin, aren't you? You were in that airplane bathroom.
I know you have it.
Yeah.
No, it's
but
a classic.
I'm I mean, what else could be said? Tangents, man.
This is the Tangent Cast, guys. You're here.
Yeah.
All right, so just to wrap it up, and we're probably, I promise, the Lost thing will be a regular part of this, but it probably won't be the whole video. But just
this is just more of an introduction. I promise you. I assure you, I will not, rag on for or ramble on about Lost for however long we did this time.
Just to bring it around, so you're halfway through season 1. Memory fails me, but you've seen a lot of the main cast flashbacks. In terms of the people you haven't, and I can think in my head of a couple who you haven't seen flashbacks for, who were you either like most excited, or who are you most intrigued that you don't have a full grasp on character-wise, that you want to see what they're up to before you dial in?
I want to see the two guys that I want to see their backstory. One is Boone, and one is Michael.
Okay.
Those are the two, especially Michael with his son. And I'm telling you, I don't know. And I'm not even going to give you time to react because I'm very much like that.
Yeah.
I'll tell a very very quick Spider-Man story about that in a sec. So I'll bring that around. But that kid is gonna get lost. He's gonna get kidnapped. I know it. But no time to react because I'll go into because I'm very perceptive on that. I'll pick up ticks and I'll pick up how you say something. After Spider-Man No Way Home came out, our friend Rob, Robert, who I used to work with, a friend of mine, I remember he saw it before I did. And I was very much like I locked everything down. I don't want to know anything. And then I remember the morning he started to talk. I said, I don't want to know anything. And then he just asked me, well, what do you hope to see? And like an idiot, I told him because I didn't think he was going to respond to that because I thought I made myself perfectly clear. And I said, I hope Toby doesn't die and I hope they acknowledge that him and MJ are still together. And then he said, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. And I said, you motherfucker.
Yeah.
I was like, why did you? And my whole thing was, you didn't have to say that. Added
You
nothing.
didn't have to say anything. You could have just been like, yeah, cool.
Said, all right, man, let me know when you see it.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know,
I don't understand.
He could have answered and said, you know what I was watching and thinking about? Speed 2 Cruise Control.
As one does. Yeah.
With, Willem Dafoe. So,
Of course. Bring it around. Yeah. No, I don't understand I can understand seeing something and being so jazzed about it and like, it's hard to kind of keep that in. But no, if someone has yet to see it and they have things they're really looking forward to and want to know about, it's so easy to just either like deflect or just don't talk about it. Just tell them, hey, I liked it. Hey, I didn't like it. Blah, blah, blah. Tell me when you see it so we can talk about it. It's that easy.
Exactly. Just, hey, man, when are you going to see it? Okay, let me know when you saw it.
Yeah.
It just, man.
Yeah.
So I was, and then I was watching it and I was like, all right.
Yeah.
I knew, and at the end of, spoilers again for movies that people should have probably seen by now. When Toby gets stabbed, everyone in the theater was freaking out, and I'm like, he's fine,
Shut up,
I'm
guys,
like, get up. No, I just turned into emo Peter, and I'm just like, you gonna cry?
Little baby Goblin Jr. You gonna cry? Yeah. God, that movie, that's another thing you talked about, warp time after 2020. That movie feels like 10 years ago already, and it was in 2021. Yeah.
I mean, think about this could be a whole nother episode, and it probably should be, but how it's a very weird time in the scape of Marvel.
Yeah.
For the fact that they are really not on solid footing.
They're scrambling right now, I would say.
A lot of the people that I think that, they're big mistakes. They relied on characters that they thought and I could be wrong on this, but this was kind of my impression. They did that shift when they're like, okay, Robert Downey Jr. is leaving until he's not. Chris Evans is leaving.
Yeah.
The Hulk is a supporting character because they don't have the rights for him to lead it. You're kind of shifting these characters. But then they started introducing quite rapidly these characters based on, it felt like not who fans would want to see the most, but who they thought fans should want to see the most.
Yeah.
So they did, and I liked the majority of the TV shows that I saw, but it's just too much. It's oversaturated to the point where I'm like, there's still stuff I haven't seen. I haven't seen Eternals. I haven't seen Shang-Chi. I haven't seen Black Widow. I haven't seen Wakanda Forever. I haven't seen Thor: Love and Thunder. I haven't seen Miss Marvel. I haven't seen the Marvels. I saw one episode of She-Hulk. I didn't see What If Season 2. It's a lot of this stuff that I'm like, and the further you move away from it and the stuff piles up, it's just exhausting.
Yeah.
And there's stuff that's really centralized is still very good. Like, I loved Loki Season 2.
Oh, so good. Best ending.
And yes, and I was a very big proponent of Quantumania, even though I expected a lot of people weren't going to like it because I think their expectations of Kang were so big that they forgot it's still an Ant-Man movie.
Yeah.
And it's going to be quirky, It's going to be weird. It's going to be funny because it's an Ant-Man movie. Um, so people ragged on, a lot of those parts because they're like, but it's Kang. And I'm like, yes, but it's still a movie of a
Yeah.
superhero who controls ants. So
Yeah.
what were you really
You're
expecting?
still gonna
But
get Bill Murray being like weird as fuck, which was delightful.
oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I'm like, just, and Bill Murray, you could tell he makes decisions based on one of two things. Either he's getting a big fat wad of cash, or he's like, I'm just gonna just try some shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's, and then going forward, they're bringing the Fantastic Four in, and Kevin Feige literally just said that Secret Wars, as a result of it, is, the X-Men are going to be front and center.
Which is so funny because they've been hyping up X-Men coming into the MCU. I feel like since like before Endgame. I mean, it's been a thing, and it's now
Yeah.
secret. I don't even believe them that it's going to happen with Secret Wars. Until it happens, I'm just like, you guys are going to keep saying that to keep people invested. You know?
Yeah, they're stringing people along, and I guess I don't know how long this is running, and we should probably cut it soon. But I'll say the last I guess little bit that I'll say in this is there's always an expectation now and a realization that you have perspective enough that that even they're Marvel's kind of machine or processes, they're gonna pick a large story from the comics, but they're gonna change a great deal to fit the characters that they have.
Right.
And that's why you knew we were not getting Infinity Gauntlet,
Yeah.
but they
Yeah.
were going to take the giant thrust of it and then change things up. But Secret Wars, you didn't have to do that. They never had to say they were doing Secret Wars because there's so many other things they could do.
Yeah.
You cannot under deliver with the characters that are going to be in it. I think people realize that not everyone could get equal time, and there are going to be cameos and there are going to be little bits and pieces. I think people will be okay with that.
Right.
But especially after getting Deadpool and Wolverine, knowing that they're pulling these characters from past franchises outside of the MCU, you have built up an expectation on a massive level
Yeah.
that if you undersell it or if you oversell it and then undercut it, it is going to be a very difficult thing to pull off. And I don't think when Secret Wars comes on, when you had Deadpool and Wolverine, yes, I was not expecting Blade. The one that people knew about was Jennifer Garner, which I think that was smart because, and I'll tell you, when I was in the theater, Jennifer Garner does her thing and she holds the fucking sigh, and everyone's like, I'm like, you don't give a shit about her. I
That.
still
Yeah.
remember the funniest bit, and I'm going back to 2003's Daredevil, is that they're playing Evanescence Bring Me to Life. Kyle, you know exactly where I'm going with this. They're playing Evanescence Bring Me to Life. Ben Affleck suiting up, and then Elektra, the bags of sand are falling from from the ceiling, and she's cutting them all, and the sand is falling off. You know what happens afterwards? She goes and gets killed by Colin Farrell's bullseye. And all I'm thinking is someone had to walk into that apartment and then find sand everywhere, and then it cut the lonely guy just sweeping the sand up. Like, oh, what the fuck was he doing?
Make that Stan Lee.
And yeah, exactly. But you see people like Elektra, you can get by with. She had a nice moment.
Yeah.
It was a nice inclusion, but it works in that because you had Gambit, and then you had the big shock of Wesley Snipes,
Yeah.
and you had
Who I thought he and
you
Ryan
know,
Reynolds fucking hated each other.
yeah, which they made fun of. I guess they made up. It was enough cash.
Yeah.
But Chris Evans is the Human Torch comes in. You can be okay with that because the novelty of the whole thing is still Deadpool with Wolverine.
Yeah.
If you're doing Secret Wars, you need one, you need Hugh Jackman to be back in that.
Yeah.
You need Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield in it. You need to bring back at least some of the Fox X-Men because that's going to be the expectation.
Yeah.
And now you've set the precedent for bringing in prior established characters, that if they don't do that, and if you have this big Secret Wars thing and you're looking at Miss Marvel and Moon Knight, uh, you know,
Yeah.
I liked Moon Knight as much as the next person, except for the end fight. But you know, that can't be Secret Wars. So
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what they're gonna do. I think they're gonna the Fantastic Four are gonna play a huge role in it. But the one question I do have, I don't know if they've announced this. I don't know if it's gotten out. I sure haven't heard it. Is Robert Downey Jr. supposed to be playing a Tony Stark variant who became Doctor Doom, or is he supposed to play Victor Von Doom?
Sadly, and then they've been a little cagey. I do think it's like fully he's playing Von Doom, which is
What the fuck?
yeah, man. I remember vividly, and this tells you about where I think both of us are at with Marvel right now. The night that they were doing the big announcements at, I guess it was Hall H or whatever at Comic-Con, I didn't really care. I was just kind of like, I'll look at Twitter the next day or whatever. I saw Robert Downey Jr.'s name and I was like, there's no fucking way. And then I saw Doctor Doom and I was like, excuse me? And, you know, reading more, it infuriates me that the now that they're finally bringing in the Fantastic Four, I had started to actually get legitimately excited for that. I love Pedro Pascal. Like, I'm excited for the direction that's going. Started to get interested, and then you do that and immediately kill all of the excitement I have for them coming into the MCU. Because now, the conflict between Reed and Doom is not going to matter at all. It's going to be between Spider-Man and Doctor Doom because he's going to see fucking Tony Stark.
Yeah.
He's gonna look at the fucking camera and go, "I hate you 3000," and then fucking 10 different neckbeards in the theater are gonna come all at once. Like it's not gonna.
Oh no, you're gonna have to go in with a tarp like you're going to see Gallagher. Oh, it's awful. I wonder. The only thing that and part of this is me trying to justify it because it seems like such a bad idea, and I hope that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And whatever we've been led to believe is different and they pull it off, that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
But a lot of this is me trying to justify it to myself. And I wonder, is it because you're getting Secret Wars is the second, it's the end game to the Infinity War. So the Infinity War here is Doomsday.
Right.
And you would imagine it's going to end the same way where Doom is going to win.
Mm-hmm.
But what I thought in my head is that are you going to think that Robert Downey Jr. is Victor Von Doom, but then you realize he is just a Tony Stark variant, and then the real Doctor Doom is going to kill him.
Yes.
And then squash everyone, and then you'll find like a Jamie Lannister or someone like that.
Maybe an actually Romani actor just fucking spitballing here. Like that's the other insulting thing. Don't cast a fucking white guy.
Oh, that's what they like to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
very right.
Yeah, that's what they like to do. Yeah. So yeah, that's the hope, but I don't know. It's a lot of, and maybe that's another episode unto itself, just talking about where Marvel's gone, and maybe I'll catch up on some of that stuff. Have you watched Agatha?
No. Could not give less of a fuck about that show.
I know what happened just because I was like, I'm not going to watch it, but I know they're going to put some important stuff in there.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know what happens in it. I don't know if you know.
I don't really care. Like, you can tell me. I doesn't.
Okay,
spoilers for anyone who cares about this show and wants to watch it.
Yeah, spoilers. Aubrey Plaza, you find that she's Lady Death.
Okay. Interesting. I love that for her because I love Aubrey Plaza.
Yeah. The one of the kid. There's one I think
I
call
that.
him
He's Billy,
and
right?
you find it. Yeah, he's Billy Maximoff.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, when I first heard, they're gonna do an Agatha show, I'm like, why?
Why? Who wanted that?
She fit in WandaVision.
Yeah.
You didn't need to. Not everyone. You wind up watering down some of these characters because, like, we know that they worked in a smaller sample size.
Not everyone needs to be a lead of their own show or their own movie.
It's like if you're like, hey, Julia Louis-Dreyfus is going to have her own show where she's the main character. No.
Yeah.
Keep her in the background. Whatever the hell they're I totally forgot about this. Okay.
Yeah.
This says the complete status of Marvel. The fact that I was naming off we were talking about all these properties, and just now I remembered Agatha and Thunderbolts,
Yeah.
and they were completely forgettable up until this point.
Mm-hmm.
If Thunderbolts doesn't pull a Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad, and immediately kill off at least half of that group, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're really like, I like Wyatt Russell, but the character sucks.
Yeah.
Ghost, you undid this meaningful thing between her and Lawrence Fishburne in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Who gives a rat's ass about Taskmaster?
I was gonna say Taskmaster is not Taskmaster, so
Yeah. So it's
yeah.
very, again, I hope that they pull it off, but there are a lot of questionable decisions that I wonder if they're gonna stick the landing, because the box office budget for those Avengers movies are gonna be insane. I also think that the Russo brothers were their fallback plan.
Yeah, that even before the RDJ thing, the Russo brothers was already enough for me to be like, all right, guys, what are we doing here? Like, you're not putting any faith in, just bring them back is very lazy, but you're right, it was absolutely their fallback plan.
They kind of just came out shrugging. They're like, nah, it's us
We're
again.
Back. Hey, guys. Sorry, the Gray Man 2 will have to wait a couple years. Yeah.
Gray Man 2, just the lighter, the Gray Man 2, a lighter shade.
It's a crossover with 50 Shades. Yeah. Well, we've probably been here for who knows how long now. We're gonna wrap this up, but this has been the first episode of the Space Cowboys podcast. Whether you're listening on a drive to work, I hope not, or watching at home, maybe don't start your day that way. But this has been my friend Jim. I'm Kyle. We will be back whenever next time happens to talk more Lost, talk more movies. I'm sure, like Jim said, we could do a whole episode talking about Marvel and but we'll have plenty to talk about.
I'll be ready. For you guys, I'm always on the line.
Fuck yourself. Just get out of here. All right, guys. We'll be back. Bye.